In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Illustrator to create this underwater scene. The main tools that we're going to use are gradients and symbols. So your finished product might end up looking something similar to this. I also want to point out that anything that's over this black bounding line is not going to print, so you don't have to worry about this stuff that's hanging over out onto the sides. So first of all, you need to create a new document, and I'm going to call this Underwater and put my name on it. Double check that this is set to letter size and that the orientation is set to vertical, and click OK. So I am on number 2 on the handout if you're following along. I'm going to select the pencil tool and then double click it to get the pencil tool options. Make sure that the fidelity is set to 0.5, the smoothness is set to 0, and all of the option boxes are unchecked. This is going to make sure that the pencil tool closely follows whatever path you draw. The next thing that we're going to do is make sure that the fill is set to none, the stroke leave it on black, and the size of the stroke leave it on 1 point. Now I'm going to draw a jagged seafloor here on the bottom of my document. And on the outside, you don't have to worry about what it looks like. So when I get close to the beginning and end points, I'm going to hold down Alt, and that will make sure that it connects the beginning point to the end point. So now that I have my seafloor drawn, I'm going to go ahead and add a gradient to it. So number 5 on the handout says to open the gradient panel. I'm going to go ahead and tear that off and leave it here so that I can have it open. So with the selection tool, click the seafloor and then open up the swatches and choose a linear gradient from the swatches panel. You can see that the linear gradient default colors are white and black. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this tan color and drop it on top of the white. Click on this brown color, whoops, and drop it on top of the black. But the gradient's going the wrong direction. So I'm going to change the angle of it by 90 degrees and hit enter. And that's better, but I still want a little bit more dark at the top. So I'm going to take this slider and move it over to affect how much dark there is. And I think that looks much better. So number 6 on the handout says to remove the black outline, the black stroke that's on this seafloor. So I'm going to pop this open and set it to none. Then I can deselect this, Control-Shift-A, and there's my seafloor. So number 7 on the handout says to use the rectangle tool to draw a rectangle that's going to be the water. There we go. And we've covered up our sand, so what I'm going to do is just use the selection tool, right click on this, go to Arrange and Send to Back. Great, so now we have our seafloor back. But this is the wrong color, so I'm going to apply a gradient to change that to the color of water. So I'm going to go with a radial gradient this time instead of a linear gradient, and I'll use maybe this light blue and this dark blue. And there's not enough of a contrast there, so I'm going to double click this slider and add some more white to it. That's better. And maybe I will make this one a little bit darker. Okay, that's better. Another thing that I can do to affect this gradient is use the gradient tool over here in the toolbox. Notice when I click on that, I got this slider, and I can move this slider around to create more or less of a color. And I can also click on this and drag it around, and that can change where the gradient is originating from. So let's see, I'm going to maybe leave it about like that. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is draw some wave shapes using the pen tool. So over here in the toolbox, I'm going to grab the pen tool, and I'm just going to click and drag, click and drag, click and drag some nice, smooth, curvy shapes to be some waves. And when I get to the beginning, I'm just going to click to make sure that the end point and the beginning point touch to make a closed shape. Now let's see, I'll do one shape here, and I'll have them overlap. Something like this. And one more shape down here at the bottom. And I want this to go behind the ocean floor, so I'm going to select it with the selection tool and then arrange, send backward, which the keyboard shortcut is Control Bracket. So I just hit Control Bracket a couple of times until it was behind the seafloor. Alright, so now I could use the direct selection tool to click on some of my anchor points and make these transitions a little bit smoother in some places, but I'm trying to go a little bit fast here. But I expect you to put more effort into it to get these shapes of the waves to look maybe a little bit less choppy. So we're going to put an inner glow on the waves to give them a little bit more visual interest. So I'm going to go ahead and click the first wave up here at the top and go to Effect, Stylize, and choose Inner Glow. You can play around with these different options here until you find one that you like. Let's go ahead and put on Preview to see what that looks like. And I think I'm going to make the opacity a little bit less. That seems a little bright. And click and re-click the preview. And maybe I'll make this a little bit less. I want a little bit more of the color showing through. Make a little bit less opacity. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, and I'm gonna go with that. I think that looks pretty good. Now, since I've done this once, all I have to do is click the next wave, go to Effect, Apply Inner Glow. Go to the next wave, Effect, Apply Inner Glow. And Illustrator remembers what I did to the first wave and it applies it to all of the waves. I'm going to play around with what these would look like as linear gradients instead of radial gradients. And I really don't see that much difference, so you can play around with that and do it however you like. I think I'm going to maybe change the color of this so it's a little bit more blue. And yeah, I like that. Change the color of this so it's a little more blue, and also do that to the last one. Okay. Yeah, I like the way that looks. Alright, the last thing that we're going to do is change the opacity. So, selecting the first wave, I'm going to go ahead and move this slider around until I like the way it looks. So somewhere in the 60s, I think. Somewhere in the 60s. Yeah. And we really won't see the full effect of that until we start putting things on top of these waves. Alright, so now it's time to populate our scene with creatures. I am on number 12 on the handout if you're following along. So I'm going to go ahead and close the gradient panel now and close the swatches and open the symbol panel. And over here on the side, I'm going to pop open this menu, go to Open Symbol Library, and open Nature. So here are my brushes, and I'm going to choose a fish. How about this one right here? To get the fish onto the background, we have to use something called the Symbol Sprayer. And we're going to do a couple of different things with the Symbol Sprayer. So it looks like a little spray can right over here in our toolbox. And what I'm going to do is just click, and drag. And it makes all of these fish be sprayed on top of my background. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hit delete to get rid of those fish and show you some ways that you can refine this. So if you double click the symbol sprayer, you can do things like change the diameter, change the intensity, and change the density. So if you want a lot of fish together, you could crank the density up really high. If you want fewer fish, you can make it low. So you can play around with what different options that you like. So I'm going to go ahead and spray on a little school of these fish and show you some more ways to manipulate the fish. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is use the symbol shifter. So I'm going to click over here on my spray can and hold it and get the symbol shifter. Now I can click on the different fish and adjust where they're at. Now this is meant to make fine adjustments, so if you don't like the way the configuration of the fish is, you should just delete the whole thing and start over again, because you can't make big adjustments with this. So if you have big problems with the way your fish are arranged, just try over again. So you can see I can make little adjustments here. Alright, so to emphasize the filling of space, I'm going to make some of these fish that are closer to us larger, so it makes the smaller fish look like they're further away. So I'm going to go over here and click the symbol sizer, and I'll choose this fish right here and click them so that they're bigger. Maybe this fish will be bigger. Maybe the ones in the front will be really big. Maybe, there we go. And these here that are further away will remain small. I'm going to go back and get the symbol shifter again and maybe make these fish a little bit further apart. Shift them around a little bit. Great. That looks good. There we go. Alright, so let's say I wanted to delete one of these fish. What I do is go back and get the regular symbol sprayer and hold down Alt, and let's say I want to get rid of this little fish back here. Oh, that actually got rid of two fish. Let me undo that. So I can make my brush size smaller by hitting the bracket key next to the P on the keyboard. And now I'll hold down Alt and hopefully, yes, great. So it just got rid of that one little fish. So let's say I want to get rid of this little fish too. So that's the way that works. Alright, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and get a different type of fish. How about this orange one here? And I'll put some of those fish kind of up here in this area. And they're a little bit thick together, so I'm going to delete a couple of them. Delete that one. And maybe I'll use the symbol shifter to move these around a little bit. Slightly. And now I'm going to use the symbol sizer to make the ones that are closer to us a little bit bigger. Great, so it looks like it has some depth there. Alright, well you can add different fish on there however you want to. So the next thing that I'm going to do is make some silhouette of some fish in the background, so it looks like there's some things that are really far away. So for this I'm actually going to need to make a new layer. So I'm going to pop the layer panels open and click this little button down here, which is create new layer. And I'm going to click it inside this little circle right here to make sure that it's selected. So I'm going to choose, how about this fish, this fish right here, it's a shark. We'll make it look like there's a school of sharks in the background. So with the Symbol Sprayer normal tool, I'm just going to click one time to make one shark. And I'm going to need to, I'm going to change the color of this, so I'm going to need to click up here to break the link. Then I'm going to change it to a blue color. And let's deselect that, Control-Shift-A. So there I have my shark silhouette. So to turn that into a symbol so that I can spray it, I need to drag it back to the symbol panel. So get the selection tool and don't drag it here. This actually isn't the symbol panel. This is the brushes. Those are the options. So you actually have to open the symbol panel, click it, and drag it here. And it's going to ask you a new symbol, and I'm going to call it Silhouette Shark. And it's not a movie clip, it's a graphic. And then I'll click OK. So now that my shark is in my symbols over here, I can get the symbol sprayer and I can, you know what I forgot to do? Darn it. Let's go back. I should have made this shark smaller because there's supposed to be a small school of shark in the background. So let me drag that over here again, and I'm going to call it Small Shark. And graphic, okay, good. So symbol sprayer, and I'll just throw, too many. Throw some of these sharks here in the background. And I want them to be in the background, so I'm going to arrange send backward, which is also control bracket. So control bracket, 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 keep hitting control bracket. Okay, another thing that we can try is just to go ahead and take this layer. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this layer and throw it in the trash. I'm going to open this layer and click the underneath where I can see the fish, and I'm going to go ahead and spray those silhouettes again. So let's try that. Okay, so now control bracket, there we go. So now those fish are pushed to the background the way that I wanted them to be. Alright, I'm also going to add some seaweed on there, so let's try this symbol sprayer. Add some seaweed down here at the bottom, here and there, and maybe I'll add one of these shells down here. And I'll, whoops. Add a shell over here, perhaps, with the symbol sprayer. One right there. Okay, and that is the finished product. So save your changes to your folder on the P drive. And that's it for now.